Guys, my name is Wale Raji from Eden Family. Today we want to talk about conflict in marriage. Conflict has been described as any serious argument or disagreement between husband and wife. And there are many, you can have different types of conflict. You can have good conflict or bad conflict. A good conflict is a conflict where both parties win, that leads to greater intimacy between the husband and the wife. A bad conflict is the one that nobody wins, it just ends in gridlock and it drifts the two parties apart. There are many reasons for conflict, and some of the reasons we'll be discussing today. One of the main reasons for conflict is what I believe is our mindset or the way we see things. Because we all come from different backgrounds and we see things differently, we're likely to clash and disagree about things. What's important in a marriage is for both parties to respect each other's view and to learn to listen to each other. The other thing that can cause conflict is our mood or the inability to manage your mood. The scripture says the man that can control his temper is greater than a man that can control a city. So your ability to control your mood, even when you feel offended, is quite important in a marriage. I remember walking to work one day and I stepped on a lady where we got off the train, and she looked back and smiled, and I said sorry. Now it's possible for me to step on someone else and they will just be offended and flare up. So your ability, she may even be offended for me stepping on her, but she sure didn't show it. So your ability to manage your mood is really important. There's no point flaring up and just screaming and shouting and showing bad example for our children. The other reason for conflict is what I call low frustration tolerance, or our inability to tolerate frustration. Now we will find out that a lot of the conflict in marriage are even unsolvable. They're never going to go away. So what's important is for us to learn to tolerate these problems. But some people are just unable to tolerate difficult things and difficult people. Such people sometimes they magnify and catastrophize the problem above the real issue or above the grace of God in their life. And what they should do is to learn to trust God more than the way they see the problem. So they should magnify the grace of God and minimize the problem itself. The other thing that can cause conflict is lack of compromise. Some people find it hard to compromise. They live in a polarized thinking. It's either white or black or a tunnel vision. They see things from a straight line. They're inflexible. I remember living in Sweden and I had a neighbor who I believe must have suffered from serious OCD, because whenever she walks on the street, she needs to walk on a straight line. So one day I tried to be naughty and I stood in front of her thinking maybe she would bend and take another route, but she refused and stood. I had to be the one to leave because she just needs to walk always in a straight line. Some of us are like that. It's either this way or no way at all. We're inflexible. We do not live in the gray area. But in a marriage, it's important to learn to compromise, because you have two equal people coming into a union and you have to just be flexible. If you're inflexible in a marriage, you will find it hard to enjoy it. The other thing that can cause conflict is past hurts or past wounds. You have heard the phrase, hurt people, hurt people. What it means is that people who have been hurt in the past, if they've not healed from the hurt, they will end up hurting other people because of their wound. They said misery loves company. So if you're feeling miserable, you may make someone else feel miserable just so you can have a company. But what's important is for us to heal from our wound so that we don't project it in our marriage. And people who have been hurt, either maybe through abuse or whatever things you've been hurt in the past, try to heal your wound so it doesn't continue to haunt your marriage. You can heal by confessing if it's a known sin. So it's important for people to deal with their hurts by forgiving themselves, forgive the person that hurt you, release it to God, because you see, until you release it to God, God cannot restore all the things you have lost. And ask God to restore all the things you have lost after you have released it. And then the other thing that can cause conflict, believe it or not, is really outside the two parties. Sometimes our conflict may even be satanic or demonic. I remember I was asking a lady recently who had left her husband to go back, and she spoke about how when the husband is beating her, he is not himself. And even it is after he's finished beating her that his eyes are cleared and he realizes what he's done. So sometimes people can be under a satanic spell whereby the devil is the one causing the conflict, or maybe they open the door for the devil to influence their marriage. So it's important for such people to pray and ask God to deliver them from whatever hold the enemy has on them. The last thing that can cause conflict in a marriage is what I call lack of agape. Remember, I didn't use the word lack of love, even though the word agape means love, but it means a different kind of love. It is the God's kind of love, or total commitment and devotion to God or to something. It's important for us to be totally committed to God and to our spouse. So the love we have in our marriage should transcend chemistry or friendship love. It should be total commitment, such that no matter how you feel, you're committed to the welfare of your wife, your children, and your husband. Such love will always be patient. It will be kind. It will not honor the other person. It does not seek itself. It's not self-seeking. It always protects, always trusts, and always persevere. That is the agape love that we should have in a marriage that unfortunately can be lacking in this day and age. Now we're going to talk about the rules of engagement, because conflict will come in a marriage. What is important is how you handle it. Everybody clashes in marriage, but there should be some guiding rules that helps us manage the conflict. The first rule I would like to suggest is no criticism. You do not criticize. You may complain, you may suggest, but you do not criticize. By criticize, I mean do not attack the personality of the person. You may say you're not happy with the way the house is, but you're not going to say, why are you so lazy? So there will be no criticizing of the person's personality. The second rule is don't be defensive. So if your partner complains about something, don't be defensive, because you see, if you're defensive, the issue will not be resolved. The third rule is no verbal or physical abuse. Such things do not belong in a marriage, it belongs in the jungle. So there will be no verbal abusing or physical abusing. It is not, God forbids it in a marriage. And people who practice such, believe it or not, are living under a curse. The fourth rule is avoid conflicting, particularly serious conflict in front of the children, because our children are not matured enough to understand the conflict. Sometimes some children, when they see daddy and mommy arguing and fighting, they blame themselves like it's their fault. And they're not, even when the couples resolve it, the children don't know that this issue has been resolved. So it's important to avoid conflicting in front of the kids. Maybe when they've slept, and then you can sit together and have your discussion. The final rule for rules of engagement in conflict management is do not put divorce on the table. Believe it or not, there's an agenda for your marriage. A lot of marriages are ending divorce these days. They say 50% of all marriages end in divorce. I believe the devil wants to turn around every institution that God has created, either marriage or any other institution. And most marriages are under attack. So it's important for us not to give the devil an ammunition by threatening our partner with marriage. So no matter what you're arguing with, don't put divorce on the table. Do not use the D word. God hates divorce only if there is serious abuse involved. At this junction, we're now going to talk about how to deal with the two types of conflict. As I suggested earlier, there are two different types of conflict. There is the solvable conflict and the unsolvable conflict. The solvable conflict make up only 30% of most conflicts in marriage. These are conflicts that has to do with singular incidents. There is nothing underneath these conflicts, and they make up only 30%. An example of a solvable conflict is most of the time my wife argues with me over my driving because she thinks I drive too fast. Now, knowing my wife, even when if she is riding a donkey, she would think it's too fast. So we tend to argue over my driving. Now, it does not translate into other areas of our life. It's just when I'm driving. So these are solvable conflicts, and we disagree and we move on from there. We also disagree over watching TV. So these are singular issues. It does not translate into other areas of our life. So these are solvable conflicts. How do you resolve solvable conflict? You don't go harshly. Do not react harshly. So if you need to disagree over these issues, don't go harshly. Soft beginning is important. Study shows that how you start an issue or an argument will determine how it will end. If you start harshly, it will likely end in chaos. But if you start softly, you're likely to get good result. The scripture puts it this way: a quiet tongue turns away wrath. There's a way you can start an issue with somebody, even if they're angry, they will just calm down. So it's important to start an argument or disagreement with a soft tone. Even if you're angry, try to calm down first, maybe go away. When your mood has dissipated, then you can come back and discuss the issue. The other thing is to express yourself assertively by letting them know how you feel, what they've done to you, and how you like to be treated in the future. Just express yourself using the I, not the you. Just express yourself assertively. And to the listener, listen with empathy. Don't be defensive, just listen. And then the most important thing in resolving this solvable conflict is compromise. To be able to compromise and negotiate with each other over the issue. So if my wife, for instance, thinks if we disagree over the TV program, maybe she wants to watch Kardashian and I want to watch Friends, we can agree that she will stay in the bedroom and I'll go to the living room to watch, or we will watch CNN together. Compromise. So you just need to learn to compromise so that it's not this person's way or that person's way. Compromise and negotiation is the crucial factor in dealing with this solvable conflict. The other thing is to, if you have offended the other party, apologize, forgive, so that you will maintain the peace in the home. God always bless a home that has peace in it. The scripture says how good and pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity, for there the Lord commands his blessing. And then finally, have a happy ending. Have a positive ending. Don't end on a negative note and go to bed bitter and angry. You might wake up with headache. End on a positive note. Maybe open a glass of wine or go for lunch or dinner. Or there's something they say about make-up sex. It says it's sweeter than the normal sex. You can decide to have make-up sex, although most women will disagree that they want to have sex after a conflict. But most men will prefer that. But a positive ending to a conflict is important. Now we're going to talk about dealing with the unsolvable conflict. Like I have said, the unsolvable conflict make up 70% or 69% to be specific of most conflict in marriage. Now, I'm indebted to Dr. John Goodman in his book, 7 Principles of a Successful Marriage. He's the one that came up with this research. So 70% of most conflicts in marriage, they're unsolvable. They will never go away. They will never be eliminated. What we do is to manage them. Now, these conflicts, they tend to have underlying needs or dream or childhood experience behind them. So behind this conflict, there is a need. Have you ever seen a child in the supermarket throwing tantrums on the floor and just screaming and shouting? The issue is not the child's tantrum. The issue is the child is probably crying for a biscuit or a chocolate. So sometimes we can be drawn into the tantrum, forgetting the needs of the child. But what will help is if you address the needs of the child. In this case, you tell the child you want chocolate, but if you can stop this tantrum, you're likely to have your needs met. And then you can discuss with the child calmly. So it's important to understand that in this solvable conflict, behind most of this solvable conflict, there is a need, there is a dream, there is a fear, and there is a childhood experience behind it. An example of a solvable or unsolvable conflict is, for instance, me and my wife, we constantly argue over sex. It's either I want more, she wants less. In the last 13 years of our marriage, we've mostly argued about sex. It's been good, but this problem has never gone away. The other thing we argue about is money, spending money. Now, it's gotten better, but we used to argue when we go shopping. We argue, go, and we argue back. But now we're improving, we're learning to tolerate each other. So sometimes, but behind this conflict is how you see sex, how you see money, or how you see parenting. These are unsolvable conflicts. And what's important is how you manage this issue, because they will never go away. So how do you deal with unsolvable conflict? The first thing is to learn to express yourself without the drama, without the tantrum, without screaming. Express your needs. What do you want about sex? What do you want about money? What do you want about parenting? What is the dream behind your needs? What is the dream? What is the fear? So express yourself without the drama. The other thing you should do in resolving unsolvable conflict is to understand the need behind it. So behind the issue about sex, there is a need, there is a dream. For instance, my wife has experienced sexual abuse in the past. So she does not need to be forced and pushed when I'm approaching her for sex. So I need to be sensitive about that. So when she's saying no, it's not, sometimes it may not be because she's being difficult, it's because of our experience. So it's important to understand the need behind this conflict, and that way you'll be able to resolve it. So the other thing you need to do is to listen to each other with empathy. Then after that, you negotiate, and then most importantly, you learn to develop tolerance, because we know that this conflict will never go away. The person that needs to change is us. We're the ones that need to learn to tolerate this issue and develop coping skills of how to manage it, how to compromise and manage it together. So you develop tolerance over how you're going to deal with the issue. So like I said, my wife and I disagree over spending and shopping and money. So what I do is when we're going shopping and she's going to pick those things, I just move away to another side, praying to God, and let her do her thing. That way I'm able to manage it as long as I don't see it. What you don't know won't hurt you. No, I'm only joking, but anyway, you just find ways of learning to tolerate each other. And she also agreed that we will stay within budget. But within the budget, she has the freedom to buy whatever she wants. So we develop ways of tolerating each other's issue around money, sex, or parenting. The other thing you can do is to learn to support your partner in the need. So you ask yourself, this issue about sex, money, parenting, what is your need? What are your fears? And how can I support you with it? Okay, you've been abused before. You don't need to be forced or shouted at when you want sex. So you want me to say it nicely? Then you teach me the words to use to be more sensitive to you. In terms of money, maybe you've suffered in the... You talk to each other about the need behind the conflict so that you have a better understanding of the reason behind it. And then finally, if all of this failed, because sometimes we get to a gridlock, then maybe you need to now seek further help in a counselor or pastor or somebody you respect who can prayerfully counsel you and help you to see beyond your scope. I want to thank you for listening to this talk on managing conflict. I hope you have been blessed, and I pray that God will continue to bless your home. Feel free to leave your comments and questions at our usual address, eden-family.org.uk. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.